To form a society, we must create a social, cultural paradigm, the collection of values, principles, attitudes, beliefs, and myths, the shared story through which we find values and meaning in life, as both individuals and society. In establishing a social, cultural paradigm, all human societies have focused on the two great events of every human life, birth and death. Marriage is a central part of the culture, values, attitudes, and beliefs that surrounds birth. We require a culture related to birth in a secular society at least as much as in a religious one, and must establish it through secular means. That is one reason why the legal recognition of marriage is important. One argument in favor of same-sex marriage is that the culture of marriage has changed over the years, and that recognizing same-sex marriage is just another change. A common example given is the change in the status of the woman partner, and that marriage is now seen as a union of equals. But that change goes to a collateral feature of marriage, not its essential nature or essence as recognizing same-sex marriage would. In short, these two changes are not analogous. Rather, they are fundamentally different in kind. Advocates of same-sex marriage also argue that restricting marriage to opposite-sex couples based on society's need for an institution that symbolizes the inherently procreative relationship between a man and a woman means that opposite-sex couples who cannot or do not want to have children should be excluded from marriage, or, more extremely, that only a man and a woman who produce a child should be allowed to marry. Marriage between opposite-sex partners symbolizes, however, the reproductive potential that exists, at a general level, between a man and a woman. Even if a particular man and woman cannot or do not want to have a child, their getting married does not damage this general symbolism. The reproductive potential of opposite-sex couples is assumed at a general level and is not investigated in the individual cases. To do otherwise would be a serious and unjustifiable breach of privacy. It is also sometimes argued that the absence of a reproductive potential is obvious, quote, on the face of the record, unquote, when a woman well past the age of childbearing and enters a marriage, and yet we recognize such marriages. But again, these marriages do not damage the reproductive symbolism of marriage in the way that same-sex marriages would. Indeed, they continue the symbolism at the grandparent level and therefore across the generations. Marriage's role in upholding respect for the transmission of human life, which is the first event in procreation, is of unusual importance at present. We are facing unprecedented challenges to that respect because of new technoscience that opens up unprecedented modes of transmission of life. That is another reason why marriage should remain limited to opposite-sex couples. Without it, we would have no institution that establishes a social, sexual ecology of human reproduction and symbolizes respect for the transmission of human life through sexual reproduction, as compared, for example, through asexual replication, cloning. Recognizing that a fundamental purpose of marriage is to engender respect for the transmission of human life provides a corollary insight. Excluding same-sex couples from marriage is not related to those people's homosexual orientation, or to them as individuals, or to the worth of their relationships. Rather, the exclusion of their relationships is related to the fact that it is not inherently procreative and, therefore, if it is encompassed within marriage, marriage cannot institutionalize and symbolize respect for the transmission of life. To recognize same-sex marriage, which is to be distinguished from same-sex partnerships that do not raise this problem, would unavoidably change and eliminate this function of marriage. The alternative view is that new reproductive technoscience means that same-sex couples will be able to reproduce as a couple, so they should be included in marriage as the institution that institutionalizes, recognizes, and protects procreative relationships. I discuss this argument in the next section. The inherently procreative relationship institutionalized in marriage is fundamental to society and requires recognition as such. Marriage carries important norms and values, memes. long-standing units of deep cultural information passed on from generation to generation. Related to reproduction, marriage makes present in the present the deep collective human memory concerning the norms and values surrounding reproduction. Extending marriage to include same-sex couples, or de-legislating marriage, which I discuss shortly, would seriously harm all of these societal level functions of the institution of marriage.